Are you there, Speed?
I'm muted. Anyway,
okay.
so last night I did a stream on Breeze Channel about Gaia, the concept of, like one life, one big life ball or whatever, which was a non-woo based talk between both of us are basically into this Gaia thing. But anyway, so I unabashedly begged. I've been stalled out at 597 users forever. And so I started begging, and it's like, and, I even started sobbing and, fuck, I'm going to die soon. Please. My dream is to get 600 subs. So I had 604 by the end of the stream. Some people felt sorry for me. That was pretty cool. I didn't really cry, and I didn't pull my I'm going to be dead soon card, which I usually pull. That's my sales pitch. Subscribe to Speed of Sound. He's going to be dead soon, which is fair. Anyway, and you're stalled out at what, 250, something like that, you said?
Yeah, around that.
We need to.
Yeah. Everybody stop and click on the link in the description. Well, that's going to be in the description. That's correct.
It's going to be in the description.
And go ahead and subscribe right now to Based Theory.
Yes.
That's Grayson's channel.
Yeah,
there's also a link to it in the side chat.
Yeah, everyone. On that note, I just want to say that I was just diagnosed with a very rare disease. And my doctor says if I don't get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, then that's it for me. So I will actually physically die.
Is that the one where you need 1,000 subs or you disintegrate into like a blob of protoplasm?
That's exactly the
one. That's messy. That's ugly.
Yeah.
Okay, you should have shaved your head before you went with that.
Thank you to Sean Mock, who just subbed to your channel. So he is fighting the fight against protoplasm.
Such kindness, yes. So
Grayson will be buried in a mason jar if our viewers don't do their job.
Yeah, hopefully I'll continue to make content like the debate that we'll be reviewing tonight.
Oh my God, I screwed it up again. I can't believe it. Anyway, you two guys wanted this, Grayson and Rational Empiricist, and I do have the video queued up if you want me to play something from it.
Oh, well, I don't think either of us have any timestamps or anything. We were just gonna talk about some of the major talking points, right? Oh, you do?
Yeah. Well, I got a few. I've got basically where he starts, and I think I've got a couple of breaks where you go from one topic to the next, because it was like 5 topics, right, that were supposed to be.
Yeah. So I'll just give a quick summation of what the debate was about, I guess. Just like there were 5 main areas of the debate, but overall it was going to be TRock trying to prove that the Earth cannot be billions of years old like the scientific consensus posits, and the preponderance of evidence. So he wanted to bring 5 main lines of evidence that supposedly show that the Earth cannot be billions of years old. So the first thing that he brought up was the Earth's magnetic field supposedly decaying, so that go back even a few thousand of years, it would be too strong and it would kill everyone or something. And then he secondly wanted to say that erosion rates were happening too quickly. So if you go back in time like 1 million years, all of the continents would have been eroded away by now. And then he wanted to say that the moon was moving away too quickly. I think lots of people have heard this one before. Kent Hovind is very fond of repeating it. That the moon is moving away too quickly for the math to work out. And then the last 2 were about like radiocarbon dating. He said, you can find carbon-14 in dinosaur bones. You can find carbon-14 in diamonds. It can't be used as a reliable metric. And then he said that the discovery of soft tissues in dinosaur fossils proves that those dinosaur fossils can't be millions of years old. So there was kind of a scattershot of different topics in science, but it was a really fun debate overall. We kind of go into the weeds on each one of these 5 topics.
Yeah, we went into a lot of detail, pretty much.
Yeah.
Although a lot of it was a bit repetitive here and there, but yeah, it was a lot of detail.
Mm-hmm. My response to the continents thing is, go ahead, wear away the continents, erode them. We'll make more. Just like that old Lay's potato chip commercial.
Well, I for one have a fair amount of material to say, or thoughts to say about the erosion thing in particular. But let's start off with the magnetic field. I guess we'll just do a quick review of each of these points and some of the things I and Grayson found amusing. Or so the thing about the magnetic field, it seemed like you guys were agreeing on some of it, but he claimed he was talking about the magnetic field energy, whereas you were talking about its intensity or strength, I believe, right?
Right. Yeah, he kept, I don't know, he was definitely talking about the decay in field strength, but he said that correlates with the total amount of energy or something. Right. It seemed like he was of the opinion that when the Earth was created, the field strength, the field energy was at 100%, and then it's only gone down from there. Right. And he says it goes down in a like an actual precise way, using like a calculable half-life, like a decay pattern.
Yeah, 5% is what it turns out to be. He did say 5% a century, right?
Yes, that was the rate.
So in 60 centuries, that would be 300%. How does he account for that? Like what? I don't know. Anyway. Well, I guess, yeah, they think it was a lot stronger that when the Earth was created. But what would be the effect of a really strong magnetic field? Would it screw things up? I don't, and just think about birds and how birds navigate based on the field. How could they? I mean, well, I guess they do. There are variations, right, that go up and down. But what percentage does it normally go up and down, like within a century?
It can vary quite a bit.
It can vary quite a bit. Okay, so it doesn't really have any effect. Yeah, their idea is that the magnetic field was a lot higher during creation because that protected us. That protected Adam and Eve, so that paradise worked and nobody died and there was no mutations or whatever. So anyway.
Yeah, what Dr. Thompson said here. It seemed like correct me if I'm wrong, Grayson, but like this may have been a point of contention between you two, where he was talking, or both of you were talking about the reversals, or both of you seem to be agreeing that reversals, the magnetic reversals, do happen. But it also seemed like you were disagreeing on whether the field strength itself could vary, or as he put it, in terms of the field energy, basically. Like I'm not an expert on any of the physics behind this by any means, so they sound similar to me, but I might be now.
Yeah, so I never brought up reversals of any nature. I mean, he brought up reversals. I know that in the past I've heard him say that he's not disputing that reversals do happen, and he even admits that reversals do have an effect on the field strength. He just says that those are just little blips in an overall downward trend. That's, I think, the kind of logic that he was employing with that. So he would even admit that it would fluctuate over time. He just thinks that overall that there is a continuous downward trend with a calculable half-life.
Right. Even as you pointed out to him, the paleomagnetic trend, or I should say lack of trends, because the field strength and direction can vary quite a bit going back into
there is no overall long-term trend. I mean, he's using the trend that we've noticed in like the last century or two, which is like a small blip of like an overall fluctuation that happens over millennia and millennia, which doesn't show any long-term up or down trend.
Yeah. And he got that half-life thing from this Barnes guy, Thomas G. Barnes. And Thomas G. Barnes got his degree he got a master's from Brown, but he got his, 3 degrees in physics, an AB from Hardin Simmons, which is a Baptist university started by some pastors and a cattle rancher in 1907 to promote Christian education or something like that. So that's that guy. And he wrote a book. So that's some pretty dated stuff right there, the Barnes stuff. And then he mentioned...
no geophysicist thinks that the Earth's magnetic field strength decays, much less decays with a half-life. I tried to make this point in the video, and he seemed to agree with it, but not necessarily grasp its implications, that there is no geophysicist or person alive or computer alive that is capable of predicting the trends or like the future of what Earth's magnetic field strength will do. Like the fluctuations themselves, it's a complex, chaotic system. I kept having to repeat that because I don't think it was driving home that this is not a periodical or an exponential curve or anything that a mathematical model can neatly fit onto. This is not something that we can predict or model successfully.
Right.
Yeah,
and he seemed to be equating what you were saying with a perpetual motion machine, I think he put it.
Right. And almost everything he said, when I started looking up the names, I came up with a ICR or a creationist or an AIG.
Yes. All of his sources are going to be creationist sources. He loves to name drop, but I've never seen him drop a secular name, except I think the only one was Mary Schweitzer, who was the last topic with dinosaur fossils.
Oh, no, he mentioned those two researchers. Let me see. He mentioned 2 researchers that basically found this layer of igneous rock where they found a reversal within like 12 feet of
yes.
volcanic rock. Okay. And what that is kind of interesting. Let me show you. So if you look at, let's see.
Yes. Well, if I read, I might have seen that somewhere. I think it was a red change in the field strength, but not necessarily a full-on reversal, as far as I'm aware.
Well, the author wrote a retraction about 10 years later and said, no, we used the wrong methods. We're wrong.
Nice.
And he just blew that off.
Wow.
Anyway, I had both papers. I had the original and the retraction.
I think in the debate, I just kind of said, so what? Like, even if these things can happen quickly, I don't see how that changes anything. Like, I wasn't familiar with the exact experiment, but like even if what he was saying was accurate, which by the sound of what you're saying, it wasn't, but even if it was, I don't think that helps his argument one iota.
Right.
Well, it's just funny to me how creationists often accuse atheists and whatnot of believing in uniformitarian logic, but on the flip side, they also apply that same logic when it's convenient to them without justification.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so he mentioned Coe and another guy, a co-author that basically did that original study, but then in, this is 2014, Coe wrote another paper, The Demise of Rapid Field Change Hypothesis at Steens Mountain. So he's retracting it. And then TRock, basically, I think you said something about the retraction, or somebody did, and then he said, "Oh yeah, but he was wrong about the retraction." So I mean, so he believed the original paper, right? So the same researchers, but he doesn't believe the same reassertor when he retracts his own paper, right?
He agrees with them if they agree with him.
Right.
I mean, what the hell? Why would somebody be wrong about retracting their own paper? I mean, that is a bitter pill to swallow, right? And
because they stopped agreeing with him, so therefore they must be wrong.
Exactly. But that was amazing. I can't believe the way they think. It just blows me away. I don't get it.
Yeah, and TRock seems to demonstrate like some level, like some grasp of some of these basic scientific concepts. At least like he talks like he does, but like he talks on a deeper level about some of these issues than someone like Kent Hovind. But then you hear his conclusions and how he's putting this all together, and you just are left just scratching your head. Like, how did you get from point A to point B?
Right.
Okay, I just want to play one part here, and I'm hoping.
As Sean put it, it was to keep their job. It was all a conspiracy.
Right.
Yeah, they have alleged that multiple times, especially with Mary Schweitzer.
Oh, and at AIG and those other places where you have to sign an agreement that your research has to be biblical or you lose your job. They're not worried about keeping their jobs, right?
Oh yeah, that's definitely not a thing.
Or like tenured professors.
What the heck?
They must have, must publish whatever they're told if they want to keep their job, even though they have tenure.
I'm gonna have to.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Hang on a second. I'm gonna play one clip here that, but you guys can go ahead. I was supposed to shut up. I'm not good at shutting up.
Yeah. I going back or saying one more thing about the Barnes, I think it was. I actually had to look some of this up on Talk Origins, which I think is a pretty good site on some of these creationist claims, because, well, a lot of them don't really change since the Talk Origins website was first written.
Right.
But anyways, I think they mentioned how Barnes and therefore Humphrey's model was out of date in that it assumed that the magnetic field of the Earth was caused by a simple electric current.
Yeah.
In a spherical, is how they put it. Whereas nowadays, most geophysicists would say it's more of a dynamo model, where, like you were saying, a factor of convection and heat in the outer core of the Earth, and it's a lot more complicated than a simple electric current running through it.
Which is funny because I directly confront TRock at one point about that. And I say, that it is too hot in temperature for the Earth's magnetic field to be generated by any other known process other than magnetic induction and a dynamo effect. There's no other natural process which would generate it at those high temperatures. And he said, yeah, he admitted to it. But then he says, oh, but it's not a dynamo. That's just a hypothesis.
Okay, that didn't happen in the debate. It happened on this Creation.com article, Earth's Rapid Magnetic Field Reversals. So Dr. Humphreys responds, okay, so basically they're talking about the retracted paper, right? And let's see, Dr. Humphrey, let's see, how would this affect? Okay, so some Tim B from Australia basically brings up that they retracted the paper. And Dr. Humphrey responds, thanks for the question. The quick answer is that Coe et al. Do not have very good experimental reasons for retracting. So he's criticizing the retraction, not the original paper, which is just amazing. And then he says, just to compare the situation to something familiar, suppose Mary Schweitzer suddenly used a new and not well-tested way to analyze dino-soft material and announced that the new method shows that there was no soft material, and so now she repents of her chutzpah. Is that how you say that? In sackcloth and ashes. That will give you the flavor of the newest Coe article to me. So anyway, he just totally ignores the retraction, and it just amazes me.
It is pronounced chutzpah.
Yeah.
Chutzpah? I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, it's from a Yiddish word which has that in the back of the throat, so it's like chutzpah. So,
yeah,
that's why it's tough to do.
Yeah, and I'd start coughing and I'd never quit. So
I think the main real takeaway point here is that, and it's funny how TRock even admitted to, yes, the magnetic reversals are indeed a thing, because once you admit that, then you essentially admitted that no, the Earth's magnetic field and the trends behind that are not that predictable. And you can't just extrapolate that as an exponential decay going back into the past.
Okay.
I think that's
You see this picture here? This picture here basically shows you something about the magnetic field. For one thing, it varies all over the Earth.
Looks like there's a bunch of snakes under the Earth, just boring down in there.
But anyway, that's how you calculate that. You don't use an Excel spreadsheet to calculate the magnetic field. You model that monster, which, as you explained, our best supercomputers couldn't come close to modeling that.
The best we can only approximate it.
Yeah.
Well, if there's one thing that TRock is good at, it's approximating things. In all of his equations, he's like, okay, so if we just simplify, like this is a triangle and this is a simple electrical circuit, then the math is simple.
Right.
Yeah, it's real simple.
As many a scientist has put it, the universe is in no obligation to be simple to us.
Okay,
there's a point where just approximating becomes just dead wrong.
Yeah, pretty much.
So let me play this part here. I think I actually went balder when I listened to this, because, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I was just like, did he really say that? But try to listen to this. Oh God, I got it muted. I'm sorry. Let's see. I'll unmute it.
Yeah, let's go over this clip and then talk about the erosion bit. If that's okay
this
with you.
This is about the erosion bit.
Model completely ignores common sense collision physics. So when you have two elastic bodies that collide into each other, there is a necessary exponential decline in acceleration. So when you look at, you cited the Andes Mountains as an example, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about the Andes or Mount Everest or whatever. When you see the annual measurements of the height and you see them raise a few centimeters per year, what you're actually seeing is the tail end of an exponential decline in deceleration over time. In other words, you can't take that 2 centimeters a year or whatever it is and extrapolate it back as an average constant rate.
You look totally shocked. I don't know. It's okay. So he thinks that the continents, that some impulse hit the continent and started it moving, and then it decelerated along the way exponentially, right? Which is like an impulse force, right? Like if you hit something with an impulse, and I don't know a lot about physics, but he doesn't, and then he goes on.
Because the collision is by definition deceleration and it's exponential.
Well, I never tried to do that, so I don't know why you're bringing it up. But also, I would say that these bodies are not, again, you seem to be omitting the fact that energy is being added to the system. Like the forces that are propelling the movement of tectonic plates do not just go away whenever the plates collide. They're still being continuously pushed together. That's why, like, the forces that are causing their movement are still active on them even after they've collided. So that's why they continue to push together, and like they would probably decelerate because of that, but they're still forced together. It's not like these are just like two cars that are driving. Like the engines are still on. They're still going at it. So
what's the engine?
The main thing is
tell me what the engine is.
What the engine is.
Tell me what that engine is. What's the engine that's driving them that you said is still running?
Okay, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there is a magnetic field around TRock's head that totally repelled what you said. So what is the engine? So he's talking about an impulse, right? He thinks that the continents, like the Earth, God broke open the deeps and started the continents moving, and then they decelerated, and then they were moving so fast that they could raise up the Andes. And the thing is that, there's these convection currents, and there's another current model of another way that basically continents get their motive force, right? The crust coming up and the convection currents, and that is the engine that does it. And he didn't know about that at all. So am I wrong about any of this, or was that just amazingly wrong? So Andrew,
yeah, I was just kind of shell shocked that, I mean, it's like, does he? I mean, maybe I should have asked him this, but like, I would assume that he would acknowledge that continents are still moving today. So that would imply that something is supplying the energy to move them.
Well, he said it was the tail end of an exponential decay. So he thinks.
Well, I think that what he was talking about, maybe I was misunderstanding him, but I thought he was only talking about the impact that's like at like the Himalayas, like on two plates when they collide. That's what he was talking about. Was the exponential decay? Was the rate of
what he was referring to?
Yeah, but he was like, he was thinking that all of the force was applied 4,400 years ago, and it's been exponentially decaying ever since, and that's why they only move a little bit today. Whereas right after the flood, the Himalayas were like shooting up at about 10 feet an hour or something.
I mean, yeah, I guess if it was exponential, it would have to be very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he seems to have taken the car crash analogy for how mountains form, or the phrasing behind that, and taken it extremely literally there.
So I don't know
this reminds me of Erica and Jordan's calculations about the accelerated radioactive decay argument that creationists make, because at some point, in the creationist model, the continents were very fast, and this sounds almost like the tail end of the process that other creationists imagined. They were going real fast, rammed into each other, ballooned up into the sky, and then slowed down. The only problem is the heat generated by such a process would melt and evaporate the Earth many, many times over.
Well, are you familiar with Raw Matt? Okay, Raw Matt said, okay, if the continents collided and if the continents were just moving at like a few centimeters a year, there's no way that they could buckle up the Himalayas, because it would be like if your car very slowly rolled into another car. But if your car was going 60 miles an hour, then it would make a big dent, right? So he was claiming that the continents were going at 45 to 60 miles an hour. The Indian continent smashed into the fucking Eurasian plate and lifted up the Himalayas. And he said if it happened slowly, there's no way it could have lifted up the mountains. He actually, and he still says that in his videos today. So that's the kind of thinking that they're employing.
Well, TRock at one point during this debate says something almost equally as mind-numbing as that, where he says that, I've done the calculations, and if you have two plates that collide, like going like on a head-to-head collision, you will never get an upward force that can form mountains. He says he's done the calculations, he's done the physics, he knows.
Right. Same shit. Yeah. And why can't? What kills me is, why can't they be corrected on this stuff? Why don't they go back to the drawing board and come up with a better model? Why do they just double down and not listen?
I was shocked, honestly, at some of the times in this debate where, like, I would explain the answer and he would say, no, actually, you're totally, absolutely wrong.
Yeah,
like, it's like, on what basis are you saying?
You're technically incorrect.
yeah. That's how he would word it a lot. You're technically incorrect. Yeah. It's like, what basis are you saying that with?
Right, because he's done the.
I will also note that Orge, who is more geologically versed than any of us, is in the chat. Hey, Orge.
Oh, Orge.
All right, didn't mean to interrupt him. I mean, the if I may say something here, the thought that first crossed me when he said that, because I do now remember this part of the debate specifically.
Hold on one second, ARE. Yeah. I don't think that he was coughing intentionally. I think that was just him probably not being aware enough to mute. Like, you'll see several times in the video, I mute myself and then I cough. That's just because I'm conscientious.
Yeah.
Never know.
That's fair.
So yeah, you were saying something, Ari?
All right. Yeah. So the mind was how, like, if the continents were literally like crashing into each other at a walking speed, basically, as he put it, like then how would you get the folds of the rocks that we see in many of these, like the rocks, they're folded over each other, like as if they were bent over long periods of time. I think this is the thing creationists often have a hard time understanding in this geological areas, the fact that rocks over long periods of time and with lots of heat and pressure can behave in a ductile fashion, like what you call it, a bar of taffy, but like the kind, like a candy bar, basically. If you heat it up just a little bit and put some pressure on it, it's still solid. It still behaves like a solid, but it almost flows in a sense because it's behaving in a plastic way. And I don't think they understand that can happen with rocks too.
I think this is the part where you did the calculations. I did the energy calculations. All you have to do is approximate a mountain range, for example, as a triangle. So it's is this the part you were talking about?
I don't think so. That was actually probably, I mean, another calculation of his. But it was probably around that part. But yeah, he's approximating mountains as triangles in his.
I think you can simplify it a little more and just use like one side, just instead of a triangle, think of a line, like a post standing up real tall. I think that's all you need. Yeah. In fact, let's just not use any lines. Let's just imagine a blank piece of paper is a mountain. I'm sorry. I'm going to hit mute again now.
So you literally said you can approximate a mountain range as a triangle?
Yeah, he said that.
Well, that's like what about all the folds, the faults, the igneous?
You're just approximating all those. Triangle. One big triangle.
That's funny.
Yeah, and also two-dimensional.
Two-dimensional.
A triangle is 2 dimensions. So he's approximating a mountain range as a 2-dimensional triangle. Yes.
And we all know that 2-dimensional physics is just the same as 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
What Sergey is saying here in the chat, paper is commonly used to describe mountain building. That's what I was saying. I think he took that demonstration, that visual demonstration or analogy, and took it pretty literally. Like that's how we think mountains form.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the more Dunning-Kruger debates that I've ever done, really. I mean, he knows just enough to try to simplify everything as a mathematical equation that he feels he has a good handle on, and then, oh, hey, look at that. The Earth's magnetic field is perfectly demonstrated just like an electrical circuit. Exactly. And a mountain, yeah, that's basically a triangle. Like, I mean, this is the logic that he employs.
Right. Well, I think that's also demonstrated. I don't know if you caught this, Grayson, but at one point he was like implying that the mantle and the core were not separate layers, or they were kind of the same mushy thing, and the
yeah. I had to correct him. I had to say, I had to explain to him the difference between the inner core and the outer core, and how that's not the mantle. He was literally saying that tectonic plates are subducted into the Earth's core. And I said, no, that's the mantle. And he said, oh, well, it gets close enough. You know, it's in the mantle. It obviously is affecting the core. Like
it's approximately the 1,000
miles between.
Yeah, it's just a few, like hundreds of kilometers. Excuse me.
I mean, to be honest, there are some slabs, I think, like really ancient ones that do reach pretty close to the core boundary, but they don't go into the core, and I don't think many of them actually reach that far. Like most of them just stay in the upper part of the mantle. As far, Orgate can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think that's most of the case.
I was watching on SciShow the other day, and it might have been an older one, but he showed you know, a 3D animated representation of I don't want to use the wrong words, the mantle and the core, and showed these two big blobs coming out from within the mantle or something like that, and said these are these two big blobs, which, you know, of course, in my brain, everything's as a big part of a big sphere or whatever. And he said if you took these out, set them on the surface of the Earth, they would be have satellites bumping into them. They're that massive. But you know, and there's different theories about really what they are, and one of them is that it's old subducted plates and stuff that have just kind of gelled together over time. But it's just amazing the things that they're learning about the inner workings of the Earth.
I saw that as well. It is really amazing what they're able to probe with seismography. And there was one aspect that I was prepared to address in this debate, because in the last debate that TRock did on this same topic, he brought it up. So I was ready to own him, and I never got the chance to. But in the last debate, he said the problem with the dynamo. So he laid out his central issue with the dynamo. So I thought he would do that in this debate, but for some reason, I guess he just sort of agreed to the dynamo. He never brought up any issue with it during our debate. But previously, he said the number one issue with the dynamo is that if you have a bucket of water and you have something in the middle of the bucket and you start spinning that bucket, eventually, you know, he says that the speed of which everything in the water is spinning will be the same. So he said that the speed that the core has to be spinning must be the same speed as the rest. And if everything is spinning with the same speed, then there can be no dynamo effect. This was his logic. Yeah. And he said, no science has ever shown that the core is spinning at a different speed. And then I literally wanted to show him a paper that came out that said, here's a paper documenting the multi-decadal variation in the speed of the Earth's core and how it changes over time. Like, it was just ridiculous. And unfortunately, he never brought it up. So I don't know, maybe he did come across that study, but something makes me doubt that.
Yep. I like that illustration. Anyway, Grayson and Andrew, I just shared a document with you, which is a full transcript of your debate, and it's on Google Docs, and it's in a cleaner form than YouTube transcripts.
Okay. Oh, nice.
We processed it, so you can feel free to pick parts out if you want, and we can look stuff up if you can think of some keywords like bucket.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Okay. Hey, Grayson, I don't know if you would you better keep it to the four of us? Would you like Jorge to come in, share his thoughts? I don't know. What are you feeling?
Yeah, of course. Anyone's welcome in. I'm not.
Yeah, can you do that?
That's the story though, or else it's gonna get too crazy in here.
I can do that. I'll invite Jorge.
You have his email, right?
Yeah, especially if he's knowledgeable about geology, for sure.
Yeah, he's a geologist, or I think he's a structural geologist. I think that's right, right?
You know, since I've started this channel, lots of people that have reached out, like geologists, geneticists, a couple medical doctors. It's been awesome to see, like, you know, like the kinds of intellectual pool that's watching these videos and is interested in this topic. I mean, really is a wide range of scientific expertise out there. Whenever, you know, I need some help or something, I always have experts that I can reach out to. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, I sent Jorge.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I guess we can get into the next topic, which was erosion rates, right? I like, Grayson, how you brought up isostasy, and it was kind of amusing how you brought that up, and it seemed to trigger a lot of people in the side chat of the debate, like, oh, this can't possibly work. And
oh, really? I wasn't reading the side chat at the time, so that's interesting to hear.
Well, I think one of their questions, or one of the ways they phrased the general argument behind why they thought it was nonsensical was, if isostasis is occurring and uplift is constantly bringing more rock to the surface, then why are there still fossils Do you remember that question?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
I think I was just like, what does one have to do with the other? I guess I was just confused. Like,
yeah, there's a wiki
yeah. So
article.
I think that. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a wiki article on isostasy, so I linked it in the description. And did you guys get into Devil's Tower on the erosion topic? Wasn't that one of the things?
Yeah, he brought up Devil's Tower.
Here's where he got his info. So this is his source right here.
Tour Israel. Okay, interesting.
Journal of Creation. So
yeah,
okay, no problem, Morgan.
Oh, he can't make it?
Oh, he says he'll be back later if we're still streaming.
Okay. Yep.
What was I going to say? So I think the way they were trying to phrase the question, Grayson, was basically if uplift is occurring and then stuff's getting eroded away again, then shouldn't only the youngest layers be exposed at any given time? Like there shouldn't be any thick sedimentary formations according to their reasoning. I think that's how they were trying to phrase it there.
Yeah, I still don't really understand the issue. I mean, erosion rates and rates of uplift and new crust creation vary from location to location. So some places it's extremely young, some places it's extremely old. It just depends on the geologic history of the area. So I really don't get why. I mean, like lots of fossils have been destroyed by subduction and other processes. So erosion does destroy fossils, subduction destroys fossils. Lots of things can destroy fossils.
I think they're claiming that if this was occurring, that there shouldn't be any fossils whatsoever.
So then they're making a uniformitarian assumption that these processes are uniform everywhere and should have destroyed all fossils everywhere, which is not a valid assumption.
Right. Well, I actually contacted some people on this because this seemed like an actually interesting question to me. Is if uplift and erosion are constantly occurring, then okay, how these fixed sedimentary formations still visible? And basically the pretty ubiquitous answer I got was like you were saying, not all uplift and erosion taking place across the continent uniformly. In fact, another thing is erosion itself is not transporting all the sediment and material directly into the ocean. Like some of it is just redistributed elsewhere in the continent.
Yeah, it forms new layers. New sedimentary layers.
And especially in what are called sedimentary basins, basically. And the idea here is that the sediment is there and they're basically protected from further erosion because the land there is actually subsiding. It's not uplifting and being exposed to the elements. It's actually basically sinking and gets protected from erosional forces that way. And so that's one reason why in certain locations, like you were saying, not everywhere, but in certain locations across the country, we do see fossils and some layers really exposed in some places. And of course, in other places, they have been eroded pretty flat, like the central cratonic portions of the continents that are, like you said in the debate, like 2 or 3 billion years old and haven't changed much since then.
Yeah, so it was interesting in my research and in some of the geologists that I was talking with. One of them actually had mentioned that according to our current estimates, about 7% of all the continental crust right now is older than 2.5 billion years. So that's only 7%. The other, it doesn't work out exactly to 93% because I think about 2.5 billion years ago, there was only 70% of the current volume of continental crust as there was now. But the rest, all of that was destroyed. That's all lost. That's gone. It's eroded away. It's destroyed, subducted or eroded away, whatever. So most of the continental crust in history has been lost and destroyed. It's only like 7% that's older than 2.5 billion years that has still survived to us today.
One reason why the continent are so recycled and why the fossil record is so well known to be fragmenting much, because all this material is getting in certain places getting eroded away.
Yeah. And I mean, lots of fossils,
I think another interesting
point where they're exposed to the surface. So I mean, by the time they're exposed to the surface, I mean they're pretty much in the process of getting eroded away unless they're discovered.
Right. It's kind of an off-topic point, but it's interesting how with certain fossil locations we actually see the fossils where they have evidence of chemical weathering or chemical and physical weathering. How does that happen during a flood if they're already covered by kilometers of sediments underwater, basically?
Yeah.
If they hadn't been exposed, and because I think it's a general rule that, yeah, rapid burial is generally required for fossilization, but it isn't always. Just forgive my pronunciation.
Yeah. Do we want to move on to the moon receding away?
Yeah, I've kind of got some stuff up here. I'm putting a lot of links in the description to some things that I found on the moon and a bunch of other things. All the papers.
I kind of hope the moon does kind of just move away, because it blocks my view of the rest of the stars.
It does.
Yeah, but the moon is beautiful too. It's nice to look at. And it goes away. It already cuts a good deal with you. It goes away once a month. You get a new moon. It's not in the way.
That's the only reason why I tolerate it.
So, I mean, as much as I looked into it, the physics of this stuff is very, very complex, the moon. And, creationists are always bitching about uniformitarianism, and they apply it to everything. If the moon is moving away from the Earth right now at a certain rate, they apply it to all of time, right? I mean, so
that's what was interesting, is that I don't think that's the direction I thought that TRock was going to take it. Was he going to say, oh, okay, the moon is moving away at 1.5 centimeters per year, so then we just back calculate that rate? But he actually went with a different, like, he used a different mathematical equation, which kind of caught me off guard, because I was expecting him to just extrapolate the current rate. But because that's what I've seen Kent Hovind do, and that's what I've seen other creationists do. But he actually used, I'm still trying to figure out what formula he used. It had like a K value in it, or it was some kind of exponential. He said that it was like directly proportional to the 6th power of the radius. And I'm trying to like piece together what formula he's pulling this from. And he emailed me, I think, a creation.com article, which is where he was getting it. And where he was getting it was a footnote of a creation.com article. It was ridiculous.
So creation.com, let's see.
Let me see.
There was some other stuff I want to say about the previous topic, but I think I'll save that for when Orge gets here for another time, probably.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that if at the end, I guess, even if Orge doesn't show up.
What did it do? Why did it?
I had a lot of things to say about the debate that I don't think I'm phrasing very clearly right now.
Okay, so it was a creation.com article entitled "The Moon, the Light That Rules the Night." And I had to scroll all the way down to his like
interesting phrasing.
Okay, I've got it up on the screen. The moon's origin. So it was all the way down to the bottom.
So this is what he linked me when I asked him, where are you getting your math from? And he links me to a creation.com article. And then in the references and notes there at the bottom, that's where he's getting his math.
Okay. So surprise, surprise, he didn't do the original math.
Yeah, I'm very shocked.
So it was this article right here. So
yes, you were in the right place. It was in right there where the references and notes.
My article.
Hey, did you notice, Speed, that Ian Chen is in the side chat?
Ian, oh no,
Ian's in the side chat.
Ian, it's about damn time you stop in.
He's at work, but he just decided to pop in while we were on.
Ian, we got to get together again on Zoom. You gotta send me a link, and I got to remember to actually be there.
So it's reference note number 8 in that article.
Reference note number 8. Let's see what we got here. Okay, that's Ross Taylor, paraphrase. Let's see, conference on lunar origin. No, for technical reader. Oh, okay, it's an actual note that they did. Yeah.
So that's where he's pulling his source from. That apparently it's equal to it's proportional to the inverse of 6 to the radius of the 6th power or something like that. So I have no idea where this is coming from. I think it's ultimately another creationist source. It says, see Don DeYoung, Earth Moon System from the Second International Conference on Creationism. Okay. So it's he literally linked, I asked where he's getting his math from. He links me to a creation.com article that in itself doesn't have the math, but is referencing in a note a conference on creationism and some speaker from it. So apparently he has no idea where these ideas are actually coming from. He just, he reads it in the creation.com article, says, you know what, that's good enough. I trust these guys. I think that they're probably right. They've done their research, and he just regurgitates what they say.
They agree with me. I have no reason to question them.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the article by DeYoung. So I just downloaded it. I'll put a link to this.
Wow.
So this is where he's getting his information from. The origin of the moon continues to be a lively area of discussion. Let's see.
When was it carried out or published?
Let me see. This is
1990.
1990.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Hey, here Dave is giving us a chance to advertise for Snake Was Right. He needs only 8 subs to hit 1K.
Oh.
And so Dave is putting out the message, go out to Snake Was Right and sub to him if you're not sub to him already. Let's get him to 1,000.
Yeah, let's get a link out there.
Hey,
it's out there. It's on the side chat.
Okay, so I downloaded this thing. Let's see if I can pop it. Let's see if they have the full article. Yeah, they do. So let me go ahead and show that. So this was written in 1990.
Which, by the way, it should be said that we have our knowledge about these dynamics has increased massively since 1990.
Yeah. Oh, this is
look
pretty
at the field of medicine and compare that to all fields.
It's like a typewriter.
Oh, wow.
This is horribly formatted. It's hard to read.
No, that was perfectly formatted for 1990.
Yeah. That's a little bit.
True.
So he's talking about the origin of the moon. Okay, and here's some of his calculations. So he goes through and does some math. And anyway, it's all in there. It's linked in the description if you want to take a look. This is where he comes up with that K over radius to the 6th power.
Yeah.
So d over dt. So distant at present measured rate of about 4 centimeters per year. The separation rate drdt is strongly dependent on the total Earth-Moon distance r. But
well, that would be true.
It's dependent on the tides and everything else too, and a bunch of other, and the spin of the Earth, which I think is what's driving that system, or something.
Yeah, to my understanding, it's like the fact that so like as the Earth spins, the tides are kind of they're locked into the gravity of the moon in a way,
right?
So they lag behind the spin of the rest of the Earth. So that energy is sort of lost by the moon receding away. So that was my understanding of like what is powering the moon's recession is ultimately like that, like the system with the tides.
Conservation of energy.
Yeah.
So this is probably the original article I got them started in 1990 on this moon business, right? So this is a useful reference for the next debate
Mm-hmm.
with the box of rocks.
Yeah, because I was not familiar. I mean, I think Kent Hovind probably heard this argument in 1990 and didn't really understand it, so he just said, "Oh, well, if the moon is receding at 1.5 or 1.5 inches per year, then if we calculate that back, then it'd have to be this close this many years ago." So I think he's basically just not understood this guy's argument and just regurgitated it in an even more simplistic way.
Yeah, this argument was being debunked by Christians in the 90s, because I went through a phase when I was in seminary of trying to get my mind settled about creationism versus evolution, and all the books I read about it were by Christian authors, and so there was plenty of folks just lambasting that entire argument about the moon receding away.
Okay, so he's the president. Don DeYoung is the president of the Creation Research Society, and he's got articles on slime mold and the peregrine falcon, sticky solution, flying fish, a whole bunch of other articles in AIG. So he's an AIG guy. So that's interesting. Yep. I'll go ahead and link that.
Surprise me. Ultimately, that's the main source for all of this information. That's what TRock is just he's reading all these articles and repeating what he reads.
AIG, CMI.
Yeah.
ICR.
Yeah, what I like to do is go out and find the articles that disagree with the thing I'm reading.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they never do that.
Well, and to TRock, I brought up, and he didn't really seem to have any objection to this. I mean, I brought up the fact that before, there are multiple ways by which the moon can lose energy. It can recede, but it can also spin slower. And so when it would have first been forming, it would have been spinning faster, and it would have slowed down until its spin was tidally locked with the Earth. So that could have taken, I don't know how long that would have taken, but it would have taken a time for it to slow down until it gets to a tidally locked spin, and then it would start receding. So his simplistic math is not really using that in his calculations.
Yeah, one of the articles that I linked said something about the Earth will eventually lock the moon so that only one part of the Earth sees the moon.
Yeah,
and that is going to take 50 billion years, I think, to happen, according to the calculations, before it locks in. But one of the articles I linked. But anyway,
why, Ian? Why do you this?
Hey, look at the top of this page. Make an impact. Help us share the truth of God's word and the gospel. $17 million of a $20 million goal raised. What in the hell does AIG need people to give them money for? When I think I looked at their profit and loss statement, and I think they made like $100 million or more dollars.
Whoa.
I mean, these guys are making money, man.
Oh
well, that's where their revenue comes from. All these fundraising campaigns, and of course they have probably a lot of rich old white Baptists and people like that who leave money in trust and things like that.
Yeah, I just want AIG to know that me, Speed of Sound from Answers in Atheism, that I just discovered Jesus, and I used to be an atheist, and I know a lot about molecular biology. So if you guys want some help, I'm here. 170,000 a year, I think sounds fair, doesn't it? I just converted, Scott.
Yeah, it's shocking how easy it is to get people to donate to you when they think that they're spreading the word of their God by giving you money.
Yeah, and of course, going to give you a Cadillac or whatever. So
a private jet would really help me spread.
Get you there faster, and you don't have to be around all those demonic civilians.
Yeah, you know what would really help spread the word of God is a yacht.
Yeah. Well, think about those poor sailors out there who need the word of God, and you can take the word right to them on the open sea.
Here it is, their future expansion. Sneak peek. This is what they're building. The Ark Encounter. They're going.
They already built the Ark. What are they going to build? The Tower of Babel next?
Okay, the Ark's over there on the right, so they want to do this future expansion on the left. So they need $20 million from their, the patrons. They can't use the money they're just knocking it down in the Ark, right? Making all this money. Why can't they use that to build this building? But this is their sneak peek. It will deliver the gospel message powerfully to guests through historical information about Jesus, how the church was established, and the importance of the Great Commission. What the hell is that? I'm going to read more.
The Great Commission is the passage out of Matthew 28 where it says, "Go into all the world and spread the gospel. And lo, I'm with you always, even until the end of the earth." That little passage is called the Great Commission because that's where evangelicals see, that's what gives them their quote unquote mission, is to go out and be obnoxious to everybody, even people on islands where they don't want anybody to come or they'll kill you. They still go there.
It's supposed to look like Jerusalem, I think. That's what they're planning. So
why don't they just go to Jerusalem? Jerusalem looks like Jerusalem.
Are they going to hand out burqas for all the women before they get in there? So that
they're probably going to set it up like Roman Jerusalem, under the Roman Empire.
So this looks like it really okay. This must be a model.
Night or
right?
day.
Oh well, if Orge is going to sleep, then ARE, if you want to go back to the erosion topic and bring up some of the points that you didn't get to mention.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I guess the other thing I was going to mention, I think I find it interesting how, or I don't know, it's a fascinating topic to me how certain parts of the world were once underwater to a degree, like not the entire world, obviously. The
where I'm at right now in Texas was an inland sea of North America.
Yeah, Western Interior Seaway. Yeah.
So where in Texas are you, Grayson?
Dallas.
Hey, I'm in Fort Worth.
Hey, nice, man.
Hey, man. We're actually not really neighbors, but hey,
sister cities.
Yeah, I know where you are.
Yeah. So yeah, it used to be an inland sea. I remember when I was a small kid in elementary school, I would go like digging for fossils, and you'd always be finding seashells, or even once I find a crinoid stem. That's probably the rarest thing that I found. But all sea, like underwater sea life.
Right, and at much earlier points, I think during the more so the Ordovician or maybe the Silurian periods, there were actually a large portion of the continents, or some of the continents, were under these warm, shallow seas. I think the technical term for it is apiaric seas, or I may be mispronouncing, but basically how this is related to the erosion rates is obviously if you got a large portion of the continent that you're looking at underwater, it's going to be depositing more sediment or more limestone or whatnot, then it's going to be eroding away because it's underwater. There's no erosional force that can really affect it if it's below, or well, I guess at that below sea level. The point is that sea levels too can change, and so that also impacts the erosion rates. That was the other thing was that if you're talking about erosion rates, the fact that they tend to get larger as things as the mountains are uplifted, because higher in the atmosphere, weathering and erosion takes place there. But as the mountains get eroded away, the erosion rates get slower over time. So that kind of that would probably slow down the the time for the whole continent to get eroded flat, basically to sea level too. So yeah, just the point is multiple different factors and processes that would keep this from happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think I brought up in the debate, but when they looked at the rate at which continental crust is being lost in the Andes specifically versus what rate new crust is being generated in the Andes, they've calculated that it's roughly equal. So it's overall a wash.
Right. And I think I've seen maybe some older papers probably, but the rates of uplift in some places much greater than the rates of erosion. I don't think that I mean, they'll just say, oh, erosion rates are greater than uplift rates and just assert that, but they won't give any papers behind that or go into detail about how they know that to be the case.
Oh, I'm sure if you ask him, TRock will be happy to provide you a creation.com article. But that's pretty much all he's got at the end of the day. And then I brought up the fact that, hey, like whenever I've gone and looked at these creation.com articles, and they'll be sourcing an actual like, you know, nature.com article or something legitimate, and then their takeaway from that article never matches what is the actual takeaway whenever I go and read the actual article they're sourcing. It's always saying something completely different. And it seems like creation.com is consistently misrepresenting the articles that they source. And when I brought that up in the argument, he just said, no, you.
Wow,
Yeah. I know what you are. What am I?
Yeah. And,
yeah,
and everybody was getting on to me. They were all triggered by the word I said, that the creation.com authors have an agenda. And then, oh my God, I said agenda. They said, oh, you're the one with the agenda. How rich is it that you're accusing creationists of having an agenda? You guys presuppose your conclusions and then, like, before you even look at the evidence. I mean, the amount of projection that was going on in the comments was real.
Yeah, we've done a lot of criticism of one particular guy, Sal Cordova, over the last couple of years.
I'm going to be debating him in 1 week.
Oh, I want to see that.
It's going to be on Modern Day Debates. We're actually debating on a topic that Sal, to my knowledge, has not done a debate on, at least a formal debate that's been streamed. A Rational Empiricist and I were talking about it the other day, but we're going to be debating the Big Bang cosmology.
Oh, wow. Has that been like officially set up yet? Because I checked Modern Day Debate. I didn't see anything.
Yeah. No, I just got another email today saying February 28th at 8.
If he goes, if you go back in his what academy or what's it called? Speed the
Evidence Reasons Academy.
Yeah, Evidence and Reasons Academy. He may talk enough about it to kind of reveal his strategy. If you need pointer, one way to prepare. Yeah.
I've listened to some of his physics stuff, and all he does is he goes over the equations and the basics, and he never quite gets to why he thinks the Big Bang is wrong. But he does mention a bunch of researchers who push back against the Big Bang, and I think I do have some notes about it somewhere. I should probably share them with you. So when is the debate?
What is it, or when?
When?
February 28th, 1 week from today.
Awesome.
Oh, shit.
But what I was going to say is I've had the beautiful opportunity to look at the papers he's referenced on many occasions, and he does the same exact thing. The papers don't come to the conclusions he comes to, and nor does the little snippet that he lifts out of it support anything that he's really saying. He tries to take, and that's what he does. He lifts it out, takes it out of context, and says, look, even the evolutionists are having doubts about evolution.
Standing for truth.
Thanks to Brilliant for supporting this episode of SciShow.
I'm sorry.
Yes, and we thank you.
Yeah, Standing for Truth does the same exact thing.
Yeah. And I just think they all have reading comprehension problems.
Oh, I think it's a little bit more intentional.
It's a little deeper than that, to be sure.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that they're trying to quote mine to try to give the ruse of having a legitimate source that agrees with them. But they know full well that what they're doing is, they know full well the context that they're leaving out.
I just can't understand that type of mentality, the double talk, so to speak. The all the double standards, the projection, the quote mining, just all of it. It just baffles me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a question, Speed of Sound. Why, in the title for this, why did you put debate in quotation marks?
Yeah, good question.
Well, you were debating, but I don't know. It just, I think you
They feel
get
like
what
one-sided.
I think you get why I did it. I don't know. Any of these debates on Standing for Truth channel, I got to put it in quotes, calling it a debate. I mean, I know it is structured and everything, and it is like a real debate, but God, the people that he has, the creationists that he has debate on that channel are so bad. I mean, I couldn't call it a debate without the air quotes. I'm sorry.
I'll give praise to his moderation skills, but that's the only praise I'll give him at this point.
Do you think I should remove those quotes? Because I thought maybe you'd notice that. Because it was nothing about you. It was the quality of who you were debating. I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm just.
Well, I just wasn't sure. I mean, when you said you're going to be reviewing the debate, and I was like, "Oh, reviewing the debate." I'm like, are these guys really going to be?
You call that a debate?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no.
I thought that
Thanks to Brilliant for supporting this episode.
I gotta shut.
I thought that the only part where I was really caught off guard, because most of what he was saying is just regurgitating creation.com. So I wasn't really surprised by most of what he was bringing up. I was expecting it. The only thing was during like the moon recession bit, where he was saying that the speed of the moon's recession would be faster the closer it gets to the Earth, which was counterintuitive to me. I'm open to being wrong on that. I haven't looked at the math myself, but that is counterintuitive. I would have thought that with the strength of gravity being greater, that the moon would be receding more slowly. But maybe my intuition is correct.
His whole argument there.
What?
I said, wouldn't that seem to go against his whole line of reasoning there?
Yeah, it would if that were the case.
Well, his line of reasoning was that you can't back calculate these things in time beyond 6,000 years. So he's saying, that
isn't that their whole point though, that you can back calculate it?
So I've never found a really good explanation or theory about the how fast it was receding when it was much closer. I've never found a paper on it or anything. So if anybody has any resources on that, and I've Googled around for a long time, and I guess what happens is I get so deep in the weeds that it's beyond where I'm willing to go with physics. So
well, what the explanation that he was saying was, which I can sort of see, but like I said, I haven't seen an actual physicist or the actual equations involved. But he was saying that it's true that the strength of gravity gets closer as the moon gets closer, but so does the tidal effect. So because you have a stronger tidal effect, you have a faster recession rate of the moon, which I can sort of understand the logic in that. But again, I would just need to see the equations to see does it counteract the stronger gravity? There are multiple factors pushing and pulling this rate faster and slower.
Surely somebody's done a computer generated model of that. That would be lovely to see.
Yeah, I would think it would be out there. But that was the only point in the debate where I personally felt like I ever got surprised by anything he had to say. So if we want to kind of I feel like he combined the last two topics anyway. So the last two topics were carbon-14 and then dinosaur fossils, soft tissues.
That was one other thing that was interesting to me, how with the carbon dating thing, he didn't seem to really get the point you were trying to make about the error bars or the error ranges and the uncertainties the inherent to any analysis, like with the instruments and what they can possibly distinguish between that an actual signal and noise. He didn't really seem to get that very much, even though that's kind of like
he was trying to say that. Yeah, he was trying to say that this was definitely signal, not noise, which when I actually looked at the real studies that had been measuring carbon-14 in diamonds, it was not at any appreciable amounts that would be significantly, like, statistically different than zero. So, and I try to go over with mass spectroscopy and the different ways, like how these scientists are measuring whether or not there's carbon-14 in a sample is going to be mass spectroscopy. So I was like, well, I've done mass spectroscopy a large number of times, and you're always going to have some kind of background noise. It's like you're never just going to get a 0 rating on everything that you don't have in the sample. You're going to get all kinds of just background fluctuation. So I don't know.
I watched a thing on it, and they use diamonds basically to calibrate their equipment. So some of their equipment, because diamonds have virtually nothing, right? So they use it to calibrate. So if you try to measure a diamond, carbon-14 in a diamond, and you're using a diamond to calibrate the noise, right? I mean, it just isn't going to work. You aren't going to.
Yeah, I would think that they wouldn't have fallen for something that simple in an actual experiment, but maybe in one of these creationist experiments, maybe. But I thought that he was citing an actual, like, peer-reviewed, published result. But even in that case, I mean, there are still contaminants within diamonds. Like, you're still going to have some amount of nitrogen contained within a diamond. Like, most diamonds contain, like, trace amounts of nitrogen, which can decay into carbon-14. So I don't know. I didn't think that his arguments on carbon-14 were very strong, but it basically just came down to the fact that you don't radiocarbon date bones anyway. Like, bones are not a good candidate for radiocarbon dating because after they're deposited and they're laid down, they go through like a recrystallization processes, which like break down and rebuild the structure of the bone, like in a continuous way. So it's always incorporating new molecules into its structure, and it's chemically and structurally changing over time. So it's not like bones are generally never used for radiocarbon dating in the first place, no matter their age.
Yeah. It's the same basic principle behind you don't use uranium lead dating on bones either, because there aren't zircons in bones. Like, you can't use a dating method on all substances.
Well, the interesting thing though, and Erica over at Guts at Gibbon and others have pointed this out, is like with carbon-14 dating, we have events in history where we know the date, where that like the artifacts that have been carbon-14 dated, like from Pompeii and places like that, they match up totally. And so there have been real live, independently verified measures that show that carbon-14 dating is accurate when done right. It's a non-starter.
Yep. It's kind of like what some people, I think, like what King Crocoduck said at one point, like, you don't throw away all of medicine or all of breast cancer treatment because it doesn't work here and there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not even like it's not working. I mean, they're just, like I said in the debate, if you use the wrong method, you shouldn't be surprised when you get the wrong results. Like, if you're misusing a method and you're using it in the wrong circumstances, like it's not appropriate to use that method and you're using it anyway, then of course you're going to get the wrong results. It shouldn't be surprising. Like, I think I gave the metaphor of the order of equations, PEMDAS. Like if you misuse PEMDAS, you're going to get the wrong results mathematically. That doesn't mean that like the equation was wrong. It means that your order of operations was wrong.
I think that was a pretty good metaphor, to be honest.
Yeah. So
PEMDAS?
I think it went right over his head. I don't think he acknowledged it.
He's going, who's PEMDAS?
I think a lot of your points went over his head, to be honest.
Who's this Professor PEMDAS?
Yeah, I was hoping that maybe, I don't know. I felt like a lot of his sort of, it was just sort of a Dunning-Kruger and from him trusting creation.com too much. So I was hoping maybe that some of the things that I was pointing out might have been the first time that he's heard these points brought up, and that maybe he would actually think about them. But I think maybe I was being a little too optimistic.
The sheer arrogance at some points in the debate, like when he brought up, or it seemed to be implying that he understood Mary Schweitzer's work better than.
He's like, okay, well, she did good on these parts, but here's where this award-winning scientist, here's where she went wrong. Like, it's like,
right, where he obviously hasn't done the original work.
Like, and I even asked him at one point in the debate, I think on a different topic, I was like, do you think that the geologists are just unaware of the physics that you're bringing up? Like, you think that these basic high school physics upends this entire area of geology? I'm like, I just want to ask honestly, do you think that the geologists are not aware of the things that you're saying, or like, do you think that they're just malicious, or it's a conspiracy? Definitely not a conspiracy. So then it has to be that he just thinks that he knows something that they don't.
Right.
So I like the idea of a skeptical, analytical spirit that just doesn't take things just because somebody says so, but you have to realize where you and your aptitudes and abilities lay in relative to like the experts.
I think it's a good way of putting it is you're not just skeptical of others, you're also critical and skeptical of yourself.
So, boys and girls, back to the moon. This James, what is his name? Oh my goodness, James O'Donoghue. He has a YouTube site called. He does some stuff on the rate of that the moon is receding, and he does all kinds of animations. And he has a YouTube site called Interplanetary, which I linked in the description. So I think this is where we would get learned up on the subject. He has won all kinds of awards for basically his educational ability, I think. Prize for public engagement in 2021, and he's got a whole bunch of really good stuff. So it's a good resource.
Awesome.
It's in the description. So okay. Cool. Anyway, back to carbon dating. And
I want to say, look at all these links in the description to all the stuff we're talking about. That's a good looking description.
I've got about 20 links of almost everything we've shown, everything we have talked about. So
nice.
It's better than just name dropping, right?
Yeah, it's better than having to try to freeze frame on YouTube and try to blow it up so you can see what the hell they're looking at and figure out the sources.
Yeah, none of those debate sites put sources in the description.
No,
that just it irritates me to no end, because I would like to go and research claims, and it would be so much easier for people to prepare their send their sources to their interlocutors for one thing, and then send the sources to the moderator to put in the description. Because
hey, here we go. Simulation of lunar retreat. So he basically has done the math. So it would be interesting to look at that. 1.3 billion years ago, and so apparently he does have, and let's see what he has in his description here. Show more. Why is it moving away? And anyway, so this would be the source if for the next time somebody debates one of these tossers. Made with data from D. Azarevic as a Revit, Springer.com. So there's a paper involved too. Okay. Nice. Yeah. So we got a resource. First time
I think we've lost our audience. We're down to 7, and sounds like we've lost the East Coast and anything over the Atlantic.
Well,
yeah.
The hell with them. Anyway. Okay. So what else you guys
seems like a very interesting study. I'm definitely going to be checking that out.
Yeah, let me link this paper too. So
see, the last thing that I wanted to say, modern day debates.
Oh my God, they've got evidence. Tidal rhythmites, a selective overview with examples from Argentina.
What'd you say, Scott?
I said you don't get this on modern day debates or SFT.
Yeah,
the sources.
Well, the last thing that I wanted to say, just on the last topic of the dinosaur soft tissues, that I felt was totally crazy. Maybe one of the craziest things that TRock said in the whole debate, which is really saying something. And that's where we were talking about, he was saying, oh, you do find fresh dinosaur bones. They're not all permineralized. Some of them you find are fresh bone. They're not mineralized fossils. And then at one point I said, where's all the dinosaur DNA? How come we never find dinosaur DNA? And he said, oh, but we do. We do find dinosaur DNA. I was like, what could he possibly think that he's reading that says that we found dinosaur DNA?
Did he say where we found it?
No, he just said that we find it in fragments of 5 or 6 base pairs, which is like
different from a genetic sequence, like a Jurassic Park cloning sequence.
Yeah,
I think he was watching Jurassic Park one night, got a tummy ache, went to bed, and he had this dream about broken up DNAs or something.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I've ever seen that has found genetic material in dinosaur fossils, they sequenced it and they found out that it was actually a bacteria that was living in the dinosaur fossil.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I'm aware of that's ever found DNA material of any kind within a dinosaur fossil. Is
contamination.
Small nucleotide sequences, protein fragments, heme fragments. Like these are the most stable parts. Obviously, they're going to survive for the longest period of time.
And that just sounds like bio trash from any source. A couple base pairs. How can you tell where it's from?
I mean, it's like the fact. I was trying to make this point in the debate, but just the fact that like dinosaur fossils are biochemically completely different from like bones that are a few thousand years old. Like you can very easily tell the difference of which one is which. So that alone shows that dinosaur fossils are not just a few thousand years old.
Like some fossils are recrystallized. There's no longer any bone or shell there.
Yeah,
I think that was the most insane thing you could say at a debate.
Although Mary Schweitzer, to some extent, I think I've heard her made the claim that whenever you remove the minerals in any fossil, you're going to find some small amount of the original organic material of the bone there. So I've heard her made that claim. I don't know how true that is, but regardless of the amount of permineralization that has occurred, you're always going to be able to find some small amounts of like protein fragments or something that actually like whenever you've chemically treated the minerals and removed them.
Yeah, but
you're going to have residue of some sort.
Dr. Chris Thompson pointed out that the amino acids will be modified. They won't be, you can tell what the amino acid was originally, but you'll find fragments. And collagen is extremely stable for some reason. And there are like, they find all sorts of plant.
Well, not for some reason. It's very stable because it's like
it has triple helix.
Yeah, the triple helix. It's very tightly bound with lots of like physical interactions keeping it together, and then especially when it gets cross-linked, like we see in these dinosaur fossils, it's like incredibly stable.
You brought that up a few times, and TRock kind of just hand waved that away.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing, if you look at the composition of coal, you'll find all kinds of rings, like the heme ring in blood basically is extremely stable. And there are anthracene rings and all sorts of weird rings that you find in coal that are the remnants of plant phytochemicals, basically. And so there's a lot of, there's always going to be some trace evidence, as many criminals have been disheartened to find out. Trace evidence is there's always a way to unwind the history of something, but you're not going to function.
If you want to be really technical, a fossil is all just a trace of past life. So that's kind of that's kind of what it is, basically. Like if you find blood in or I think they found blood in like ancient Cambrian arthropod fossils, but it's no longer blood per se. It's the traces of blood that was once there, but has been fossilized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had one of the creationists in the comments who posted a link to Mary Schweitzer in a video where she was saying, she had Barbara Walters lick a dinosaur fossil bone.
Oh, yeah.
She said, you see how your tongue kind of sticks to it? That's how you can tell that it's a bone and not a rock. And then I'm like, yeah, but like that's what the creationist was trying to say. Well, this is Mary saying that her dinosaur bones are fresh bone. They're not fossils. They're not permineralized. I'm like,
she's not saying that. There are interviews.
Yeah.
With
So
Mary
the point
Schweitzer.
I was trying to make with that was that regardless of the amount of permineralization that has occurred, you're still going to get that sticking effect, because the basic overall structure, which is the reason it's sticking, is because of like the little pockets, the hollowness of bone.
Right.
That's all going to be preserved in the structure, even with a mineralized material. That's my point. What I was making was like they just misunderstand the things that she says, and they want to interpret the things she's saying as like, oh look, she's finding fresh dinosaur bones. It's like, no, she's not saying that. She's not. You can't even interpret what she's saying as implying that, but they do.
Like, this is the point I try to make is, I think she says that some like look as though they were vessels, and maybe they are, maybe they're the remnants of blood vessels, but they aren't. There's a difference between saying they look like blood vessels and they are in fact blood vessels, or even more erroneously, they are fresh blood vessels still intact.
I'm going to send you this paper, Grayson, on lunar recession. And apparently it has something to do with the continents, too. And basically the movement of the continental plates, it has an effect on it, and a number of other things. So there's so many factors. It certainly isn't constant. It's nothing that they can calculate and come up with their young Earth BS.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm still stuck on the moon, guys. I'm sorry. Anyway.
Yeah.
Speed.
You're such a romantic, Speed, stuck on the moon.
Stuck on the moon. That's better than being stuck on my shroom, right?
Where is that rim shot sound effect?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
All
watching
right,
Last of Us has gotten to me. I'm rooting for the mushrooms.
Uh-oh. You're getting some shade from Maya Atkinson.
I'm getting some what?
She just texted me and said, so I finally reach out to Speed. He reads my message and doesn't respond.
When? Where? What? Where? What?
I don't know. That's what
I didn't read
she
it.
said. Apparently, if you didn't read it, you didn't respond. And she's thinking, well, maybe you did read it and didn't respond. But,
No, I didn't read it.
Because you didn't respond.
Oh, my God. Okay, you got me. What's up? Yesterday.
Grayson, are you wishing we'd focus more?
Okay, yesterday at 7:23 p.m., Maya Atkinson did finally respond to me. Wow.
There you go.
And I missed it.
There you go. You will not hear the end of it.
Yeah, and now she'll never respond again. So like apparently she's an evening person, and I'm not. I'm like a 4 a.m., 6 a.m. kind of person. So we'll try again. Okay, I'll write something back. I'm sorry, I missed it.
Well, ARE, were there any other points that you wanted to bring up for the debate, or anything else that you found that was funny from it?
Not really. That kind of covers most of it, I think.
Yeah.
Like you said,
I think so too. He thinks that dinosaur DNA has been found. He thinks that mountains are triangles, and that at the center of the Earth is an electrical circuit. So,
Yep. Yeah. Pretty much the takeaways here.
Yeah.
Oh, let me see.
Well, Speed, I'll be checking out some of those links in the description, especially some of those that paper on lunar recession. Seems pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm working on sending you the paper right now. So
oh, awesome!
I'll link it.
Cool. Well, thanks guys for going over the debate. So, how do you think that I did overall? Any tips or pointers for how I could have done a better job?
You could have told them about the engine. You missed that one, but that was the only thing that came out to me. I think you did a pretty good job, given what you had to work on in the air quotes debate. So,
yeah, I think just the geological details behind it a little more, but yeah, I think you did pretty good overall.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys, and thanks for having the review here.
Have you seen many sound debates?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you did one with standing for truth on chromosome 2 fusion, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've listened to that one a few times. I thought it was great.
Oh, you mean the like a long time ago when I was first started YouTube, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, and and I could do a lot better now on chromosome 2 fusion because I've got all the ammo you need. If anyone ever wants to know about chromosome 2, I downloaded genomes and sequences.
Oh, well, yeah, I've been trying to do a conversation with SFT about it, but he's actually messaged me and said that he's on the fence about chromosome 2 fusion.
Oh, he should be on the fucking fence because he has been debunked so many times.
Yeah, he said that he's open to changing his mind about it. And the funniest part about the whole thing is that he said that he has a correspondence with Tompkins, and he said that Tompkins normally gets back to his messages, but when he messaged Tompkins specifically about how you can run a blast analysis and you can look for the head-to-head like the TTACG, whatever, like the sequences for the telomeric repeats, and you can find telomeric repeats in areas throughout the genome, but there's only one place where you find head-to-head sequences of like reverse and forward telomeric repeat sequences, and that's only at the chromosome 2 fusion site. And he says that he's asked Tompkins this, and Tompkins has not responded and will not respond.
Yeah, because Tompkins knows that he's lying.
Yeah.
In Tompkins' papers, he did a bunch of really egregious things with NCBI when he had the genome. And he, I think it was he was talking about DDX11L2. 11L2. They call it a highly functional gene, right? If you look at that gene,
I always ask, hey, if it's so highly functional, why don't you tell me what that function is?
What is it, right? Well, here's the thing.
They can never say anything. They just say, oh, well, the ENCODE project showed that it's being transcribed at a low level, so that means it has a function.
Yeah, mostly in the testes where every single gene that you have is transcribed. But anyway, DDX11L2, its homolog is DDX11, right? And if you look at the DDX11 gene, it has like 7 different motifs that does the job of DDX11, right? And we don't know a whole lot about that gene to begin with, but DDX11L2 has like 1/10 of the amino acids in it. So in other words, it's 10 times smaller. and it just happens to have none of the motifs that do stuff.
Well,
So
you
it's
want to
got
know
like
something really funny about DDX11L2 that totally shuts down their argument? Because, right, so if chromosome 2 fusion happened at some point in the past before, like after we split off from chimpanzees, right? That's the general idea.
Yeah.
If that were to happen, then chimpanzees should have their own version of DDX11L2
Right.
on one of the 2 chromosomes that fuse together to make our chromosome 2. And then what happens when we go and we look at chimp chromosomes? There it is, right there. I forget if it's on 2A or 2B, but those are the 2 chromosomes that fuse together to make human chromosome 2. And right there in the subtelomeric region, right next to the telomere, that's where you find their version of DDX11L2, which is just like the nail in the coffin. I mean, that's like, how do you look at that and still think that the fusion didn't happen?
It even has a little smile on its face, looking at you. Like, here I am.
Dead box proteins are almost always very close to the telomeres.
So, yeah, the only one that's not near the telomeres is DDX11L2 because it's in a fusion site that used to be the subtelomeric region.
Yeah, Tompkins is he must know that he's lying in these papers. I mean, these guys have got to know, because Tompkins, I think he legitimately knows a lot about genetics, and he must know what he's done. So it's, I don't know. Anyway.
Well, it's amazing how, someone's belief can create sort of intellectual blind spots in their analyses. I used to work with a lot of surgeons, and you'd find some brilliant surgeons that believed some very, very stupid things, even in the field of medicine. I knew several like spinal surgeons that believed that COVID was just the flu.
Yeah.
I mean, their politics and their biases got so, like, it clouded their vision so much that even medicine in their own field, they couldn't turn their same intellectual capacity that they used to get at their MD. They couldn't apply that to areas if it conflicted with their worldview.
Yeah, it clouds your ability to investigate properly. Yeah. So you'll just always reject anything that tends to go against it. It's pretty amazing. There is an amazing documentary on Hulu that I watched called Stolen Youth. And it's about a cult leader. Yeah. And I watched it last night, and I was so amazed that these really intelligent college students were put in a situation where they were completely brainwashed to the point where they had after they got out of it, they made statements like, I don't know what's real anymore. I keep hearing Dave's narrative in my head. And that's all they heard. And it was like, it's an example of how fragile our belief systems are. And we atheists also have to keep that in mind when we do a self-critique, right? We have to keep pushing and keep looking basically into what we believe and why we believe it, because you can get fooled easy. What do we got here? Did I do
this?
That?
Is that image? That I was telling you about. About the blobs on either side of the globe. That if you put them on the surface of the Earth, would extend far enough into space to bump into satellites.
And you've already given me the link, haven't you?
I gave you the link to the SciShow. This link? No, I just found it, but I can pop it in there.
Okay.
It's brilliant.
Yep.
But that's just so interesting what we're finding. I mean, but before, to me, the center sections of the Earth were just one big round ball, and it may be, softer or whatever, but it was hot and soft. But, blemishes like this is like the leaky pus of an Earth pimple. I just think it's amazing.
Thank you for that metaphor.
Well, that's accurate.
We appreciate you, Scott.
It's fluid. Okay, before we ruin Grayson into never coming back again, I will hit mute.
I wasn't criticizing you, Scott. Did it sound like I was? Damn it. Sensitive. Oh my God.
I am. I'm a sensitive guy. I haven't had my nap today.
Yeah. Well, we hit 604 subscribers today, so we finally made it over 600. So we're having a 600 sub party also, and I want to thank Scott, my co-host, for getting us there because he was the man.
Thanks.
Ooh,
Congratulations, guys.
Well, thank you, Grayson. We hope you get to 1,000 real soon, like
yeah,
you deserve.
or I'm gonna keel over dead, so it better.
You'll evaporate
right.
away, and we'll have to collect you in a mason jar and have a memorial service and to a mason jar.
Oh yeah, just compost me.
Yeah, give back to the earth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if I don't get to 700 subs by the end of the year, I'm going to basically die of a broken heart, everyone.
Oh.
So get your soccer.
Oh.
Broken heart. Okay, guys, shoot her in the head.
Yeah.
Let's
I
do
think
that.
we're about done.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Grayson.
having me on,
Thanks,
guys. And thanks for going through my debate.
Yeah,
Grayson,
thank you.
thanks for coming back to the channel and talking
Yeah,
with us.
I've linked you the transcript and I sent you that paper, so you got you got some in exchange for you showing up on my channel. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.